there are lots of things probably going around on social media saying, yep, everyone's allowed a pet now. So when people are searching on Rightmove, they're not putting the pet filter on. They think that Rightmove is out of date or something. And they're just going, oh no, but aren't they all kind of, pet friendly now? So that doesn't really surprise me. It's probably just bad communication.
Pop stars love writing songs about dogs. Remember Paul McCartney's Martha, My Dear? That was Cat Stevens with I Love My Dog. It is to illustrate the fact that pet owners have rejoiced when the government introduced the Renters' Rights Bill, giving them more rights to live with their furry, scaly and feathery friends. But data from the property website Rightmove shows that searches for rental properties which allow pets have dropped by more than 50% since its introduction. The assumption that it's now the right of a renter to have pets may leave some in the doghouse, as landlords still have the power to refuse animals if the property or the pet is unsuitable. Sounds like confusion reigns. Here to straighten this all out is Melissa York, the assistant property editor at The Times and The Sunday Times, who has written extensively about the Renters' Rights Act, which I must highlight. Hi, Melissa. I must admit, it completely passed me by, and then the renters next door brought two rescue dogs with them, and I thought, I wonder if the landlord knows about this, but apparently they're perfectly entitled to do so, providing they get what kind of permission?
It has to be written permission from the landlord. They can't just kind of move a pet in and then retroactively ask the landlord. So basically the new law means that the landlord has to consider you having a pet.
Yeah.
Whereas before, they used to be able to put in kind of the advert for the rental property, no pets, just do a blanket ban. So it's the blanket ban that they're not allowed to do anymore. Now, if you write to your landlord and say, can I have a pet? They have to consider it.
Right.
But I think you're right in saying that a lot of tenants have subsequently interpreted that as all pets are allowed. It's now these new laws are in. Every property is pet friendly.
Well, is there a quid pro quo for the landlord? Can they say, OK, you can have a pet, but I'm going to put a surcharge on your rent to deal with the any repairs that might be required to the property as a result of damage? Because that was the original reason for the blanket ban on pets, wasn't it? It was that they create more wear and tear on the house.
Yes, but they can't put it on your rent. What they can do is they can make you get insurance, basically. They can make you kind of so you can get kind of specific pets insurance for rentals. You can also add it to your contents insurance as well.
And then pass that cost on to your renters?
Yes, exactly. Right. Or you can make the renters kind of take out a policy as well, either one. So, so you can require them to get insurance. So that is one of the conditions they can put on it. Another condition is that they can say, well, you can have a small sausage dog in a masonette with a garden, but you can't have a working dog. You can't have a Labrador or a Border Collie or something. It's not big enough. So they can restrict what kind of pet you can get if it's deemed to be unsuitable for the property.
Well, unsuitable is a word that does a lot of heavy lifting, because I imagine it goes back to that sort of terrible legal catch-all, reasonable. How do you define what unsuitable is? What parameters have to be set, or is that something that is largely unknowable?
No, it is quite knowable, really.
Okay.
So, I mean, either it's unsuitable for the property, so,
But who decides that?
The landlord does decide that, but But the thing is, you can take them to tribunal, and then the tribunal can go, oh, that's fine. You can have a bird in a whatever. So this is it. So they have to make sure they are being fairly reasonable, because you can take them to tribunal about it.
But this can only happen up front, because you need the written permission to get the pet in the first place. So what renter is going to go to a landlord who says, no, you can't have your Komodo dragon in the property because it's unsuitable? And they say, well, I think it is suitable. Let's go to a tribunal before we even set up a rental agreement. I mean, that just wouldn't happen, would it? Has it happened?
No, not yet, because it's so new. It only came in on the 1st of May. But also, I think what's going to happen is you're going to rent the property and then obviously ask the landlord, because frankly, if you start doing all that kind of stuff and go to tribunal up front, they just won't rent the property to you. They'll just see you as being too much hassle. So the thing is, you would go and do that first. I mean, other quite valid reasons are that your building's insurance don't permit you to have a pet, which is quite common. If you've got a leasehold flat, the lease terms often don't allow people to have pets either. So that's another quite valid, solid reason, really. Also, but I mean, the only thing the landlord can't really do is just say, no, I don't like pets.
Yeah.
I'm worried about future wear and tear. not come up with any other solution. Come up. Basically, another great reason that a landlord can basically say no and the tribunal will uphold it is if you're in a house share or flat share and one of the other tenants is allergic to pets, and they can say no.
So it's interesting, the statistic then, that the searches for rental properties that allow pets have dropped. Does this suggest that people are becoming more aware of the law, that we're having fewer renters with pets, or that confusion seems to reign?
I think it's not so much confusion. I just think it's a misinterpretation, because it's a bit more nuanced than everyone's allowed a pet. You're allowed to ask for one, and the landlord has to quite reasonably consider it. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. There are lots of things probably going around on social media saying, yep, everyone's allowed a pet now. So when people are searching on Rightmove, they're not putting the pet filter on. They think that Rightmove is out of date or something. And they're just going, oh no, but aren't they all kind of, pet friendly now? So that doesn't really surprise me. It's probably just bad communication.
Well, even though I'm not a landlord, even though I don't have a pet, and even though I'm not a renter, I've learned an awful lot over the last 4 minutes. Melissa, thank you very much indeed. Melissa York, assistant property editor at the Times and Sunday Times, who knows an awful lot about the Renters' Rights Act.